Hi, David.
Hello, Stuart. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
This is very different of a podcast recording that we're doing today.
Yeah, totally different. We're at a conference in Milwaukee, a Lifeonaire conference. We came to a Get a Life getaway. And what's really different for me is that like all the senses are active with with Stuart. Typically it's visual and a audible type experience for me, but it's awesome being with you. But the what would you call it,
Sensory?
the noserous, the noser, whatever the sensory through the nasal cavity. The nasal cavity,
That'd be the
yes,
nasal cavity.
the nasal cavity. It really it really enriches the experience whenever you're with Stu. Um, and I imagine that everybody who's outside the room probably thought that this was a trumpet convention.
Why is that?
Because Stu has what you'd call an overactive back end. Sorry, this could be a interesting episode to record, but laughter is one of our core values. So
Yeah, we are in our bed in our hotel room, and we're not going to show you the rest of the room.
And I will highlight, each listener should thank God that there isn't a function that you could potentially smell this room, because it takes me back to the Naval Academy about 24 years ago when we were roommates there.
I had a
So
lot of protein shakes this weekend. A lot of protein shakes and protein
a
bars.
lot of protein, a lot of PT, and yeah. So
yeah, man, it's been a good weekend. We did some workouts in the morning, some fellowship, some Bible reading, some just sharing our thoughts, and really got some clarity on our business and the direction we want to go with things. It's always good to be in the same room and be able to talk in person about the stuff that we normally talk about on a Zoom call from half the United States away from each other, and be on the same time zone. So
well, yeah, we often talk about, are you investing in yourself? How do you invest in yourself? I know this is the first conference I've been to in person since COVID started. We've been to a couple different conferences virtually, and while there was some great things from those, there's nothing like being in person and fellowshipping and actually being in the same room with a group of people, like-minded people, talking about things of significant consequence and importance. So I think it was great. It was a great investment to come and come enjoy this conference. And we're going to get into some of the, not get super specific and into the conference and a lot of the details of what we did necessarily, but just some general overview of what we did this weekend, and just encourage people to continue to invest in yourself. And I would ask, as we looked at this, what are you doing? What are you investing in? How are you investing in yourself? How are you growing? How are you being intentional? And who are you surrounding yourself with? If that's not something that you're continually refining and really looking at intentionally, I would argue that I think it's super important to take a look at those things, and to really be very, very specific, intentional, and directed in your efforts of what it is that you're feeding yourself, putting in your mind, and who's doing that.
Yeah, and I think also consider opening your aperture to different types of conferences. We honestly didn't really have a whole lot of expectations and know what this conference was going to be all about. We had both read the book Lifeonaire, and we had Steve Cook, the author of Lifeonaire, on our podcast earlier on one of our podcast episodes, and then he had connected us to some other people that are a part of the Lifeonaire group. We had Polish Peter on, and we got to meet him in person this weekend, and it was amazing. And he's just a really, really cool guy. And the CEO of Lifeonaire, Wojo, who, if you guys listen to their podcast, the Lifeonaire podcast, just two amazing guys. But we really didn't know what to think about this, because this wasn't a real estate podcast, and honestly it wasn't even, it's not even a business not podcast, but an event. It wasn't even a business type event or real estate type of event, which is what we normally go to. Like, if we're going to go to a weekend event, it's always, for the most part, been about real estate, about business, because we're trying to learn, we're trying to grow. But this one was it was honestly just about life. And man, had some amazing experiences, some amazing breakthroughs, some kind of like big aha moments. Yeah, I think we should touch on it.
Yeah. And I also want to highlight, I think all the presenters and the vast majority of the people attending, and I think most of the people that are part of the Lifeonaire group, I don't want to mistake this, they're entrepreneurs, and a lot of them are doing real estate. I would say the majority of them have some type of real estate, whether it's something they're investing in, or it is the premise of their business. These are folks that were like-minded from that perspective. So while this wasn't a business seminar per se, the people that were attracted to this, and ourselves included, most of them are most of them are entrepreneurs, and it's really, I think, where the huge value in this is. It comes from the base of an entrepreneur, which, anybody who's dedicated, who either has a side hustle or is, or really any profession that requires a lot of our time. So a lot of you listeners that are military members, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of you that are doing both. It's all about that, choosing that life and the balance, and trying to figure out, okay, I have all this stuff on my plate. Is this fulfilling? Is this the life I want to live? Is this how I want to be defined? And is this what I want to look like 3, 5, 10 years from now? And so I think that, I don't want it to be lost that this is not just this was not a kumbaya get together of people trying to make a great life. This was somewhat kumbaya a little bit, I guess, but it was a get together of highly capable and go-getter entrepreneurs that are looking and asking themselves, okay, what more is out there? And what else is there to life?
Yeah. I mean, there's the overall, if you haven't read the book Lifeonaire, I highly recommend it. But there's really just this overall theme of, in our society, in our culture, that there really is a clash between what you think you need to do to get to where you want, versus what it really takes to get what you want. And a lot of times, or actually not a lot, I'd say almost every time, the things that you want aren't that hard to get, if you kind of take a step back and simplify things and evaluate what you're doing and what you should do to get to where you want to be. And there, in our culture, at least in the American culture, there's this desire to be wealthy. There's this desire to be a millionaire. And you think you have to have a lot of money to get the life you want. But I think their look at it is it really money that you want, or are there things that you want that you think money will buy that might not be the case? So it was really eye-opening to really dive deep into that, and what do you really want your life to be? What do you really want your life to look like? And a lot of times, like, the stuff that you really want, the stuff that like really fulfills you, is free.
Yeah. Yeah. And, they asked a couple really intriguing questions. We had some really cool exercises that we went through as well. But one of the questions was, hey, reflect on on a time when you experienced your most joy? And I would just ask, as you're listening to this, and once the episode concludes, just ask yourself that. Like, what are the things that bring you the most joy? Like, just take a few minutes and sit there and think about the things that bring you great joy and have enduring, have staying power in your mind for those things that elicit that emotion, right? And I don't think, if you think about that amazing car you're driving, or the beautiful house you purchased, is there joy to that? Sure. And maybe for you that was a primary goal, and it was amazing. But does it have that lasting, enduring joy, the thing that money purchases? And I would just say, you have to answer that question for yourself. But I know for me, the things that popped into my head, and as I'm talking about this right now, I'm thinking about the little bonfires. I built a fire pit in my backyard, and it was out kind of in the back middle of the yard, and it's where we every time we go out with the family to the backyard and we do, let's do fire pit night. Well, they all knew that meant s'mores. Yep. So they're super excited, right? They're like, oh, does that mean we get s'mores? Like, no.
I get super excited about
s'mores.
Heck
yeah, right? The kids had an amazing time with the s'mores. They also know that daddy has cut up the Christmas tree from the previous year. And when that thing's dried out, you throw that on the fire and you get massive flames, and the kids love it, these huge flames. And we just sit around and hang out. Me and my wife watch the kids having fun. Maybe we're having a beer or some other beverage. And how much did that cost me? I mean,
a Christmas tree.
It cost me, but even then I forgot how much it cost, because from the year before it's all dried out and it's super flammable. So, it didn't really cost, anything. So is my, did money bring me that joy, or was it the experience? And so it's just things like that you really, when you dive into it, you kind of have to I had to re-look at, okay, do I want to spend my time doing stuff like that? Or do I want to spend my time potentially building a business in the time that I could be doing that stuff? And again, it's not that you have to trade it 100% and be a pauper, but you get to be having s'mores every day. Well, obviously that's not going to work, because s'mores have a nominal fee to them, and you have to have a place to do that. But it kind of realigns, when you ask yourself that question, it really realigns the priorities and what's important, or at least forces you to think about it. It's something that you may not have thought about before.
Yes, it's those things that when you do think about it, like immediately brings you like a huge smile to your face. Like that's like true joy, right? And more often than not, money doesn't buy those things. So a big thing for me, that we'll talk about a few exercises, and we don't want to ruin the entire event, because if this resonates with you, like it might be worth coming to one of these.
I would say it's 100% worth it. Whether because we probably won't do it justice with our words, but I think any event that forces you to become more self-aware, because one other thing I didn't really even highlight about when you sit there and think about the things that bring you joy, you may realize that the business that you're spending all this time in is not even the thing that brings you joy. So Stu and I are going through this as we're analyzing our businesses and realizing, hey man, some of the things that we love are teaching and podcasts and being in front of a group and talking and laughing and trying to add value to other people. How does that align with some of the things that we're doing right now? And if it doesn't, then maybe it's time to reassess where we spend our time and where we give our time. And so I think an event like this is always a great thing, even if you don't join the group, because you at least come out of it with a vision, right? So I think it's just a perspective.
Sounds like the air conditioner in our hotel room is about to blow up right now.
It kind of does. I think it's raining. It may be hailing outside or something.
But. Well, that was a little off topic there, but one of the things that really got me thinking on this event was, and I posted a picture of our workbook for one of our assignments that we had to do, was we had to write our eulogy. And we had to write our eulogy in actually two different forms. The first form of our eulogy was, what would a loved one, if you like died today, like you passed away today, what would a loved one write your eulogy like? And they couldn't embellish it. They couldn't lie about who you are, what you did in this lifetime. They had to write the truth, the whole truth. Like, how would they write that eulogy? And so it was a really good reflection of what are you doing right now, and how would that person have to write your eulogy? The second form of that, second version of that was, how would you want somebody to write your eulogy? And then if you look at the two and you compare what, right now, what that looks like versus what you would want somebody to look like, you'll probably notice it's vastly different. And so, thinking about what you can do, what you can change in your life to change that, to reflect, the real eulogy versus what you hope someone would say about you was pretty impactful to me.
Yeah, and it just creates creative ways to give you to highlight gaps, potential gaps, to help you be more self-aware, and really from that, the hope is that you take action, right? You identify the gaps, and you figure out, okay, how do I close these gaps? How do I become more the ideal person that I want to be, and that I want others to see me as, because this is my heart. What are my actions? Where are my actions betraying my heart? How do I close that gap? And for me, that was meaningful. There was another exercise. We won't go into all of them because, again, we don't want to give it away, but there was one where it asks you to kind of highlight the life, write out the life that you want for your children. Mm. And it was interesting because, and then we have an opportunity to come back in and share. And so I decided to share, that aspect of the exercise. And I'll tell you what, as soon as my first child's name came out of my mouth, I started tearing up, and I started just getting very emotional.
I think I started tearing up too.
Well, it was funny because I look over to Stu for maybe some support and strength, and not strength, crying. Hey man, I've seen some very, very strong people cry, and I see it as a sign of strength. But I look at Stu, but not in Stu. Because I look at Stu and he's like, oh, I'm like, dude, I haven't even said anything. I'm getting teary. He's over here bawling.
I immediately started thinking of my kids too.
Gosh, man, the tears were flowing. He had snot bubbles going. It was the most ridiculous thing. It was kind of pathetic.
Yeah.
But I got emotional. But we talked through it, right? We were talking about why this was causing emotion, and I had a breakthrough in a way that I hadn't really put a word to the to a very specific way that I could be a better dad. And for me, that word was vulnerability, and showing my kids a different side. A lot of you, men and women out there listening, and a lot of you military folks, there's some times that I don't want to say shut things down, but my children don't necessarily see that vulnerable side of me. And I think if you think of all your relationships, excuse me, the most powerful relationships you have are the ones that you're willing to be vulnerable in, and honest and truthful, right? It's not the ones where you're like, oh, hey, I'm cool guy, tough guy, I never cry, everything's all good, I do 1,000 deals a year, and everything's great. That nobody wants to be with that person like that. Oh, hey, congratulations, I'm happy for you. And then you go on to find someone who's really authentic. Well, for me, showing my children the vulnerable side of me, because I'm one of those oversharers, and I'm very typically comfortable in my emotions, as Stu knows. I'm always like, hey man, let's talk about our feelings. But I don't do that with my kids. So there was a gap there. And I realized, man, if they want to really want to get to know me, love me, and how we will grow closer together, well, I should be more vulnerable with my wife and my children. And that's just not something I'd thought about previously. It sounds obvious, but it wasn't for me. And so it's very meaningful, and will enrich inevitably enriching our lives if I take action on that.
Yeah, man, there's with that same exercise, I what you'll find is you write what you want your children's lives to be like. Well, that's really what you want your life to be like too.
Yeah.
And you can see so many gaps in where you are versus where you really want to be. And as a part of that exercise, one of the things that we did was we just did like, we closed our eyes and did like a vision of, hey, if you don't change anything, what is your life going to look like a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? And we actually, on one of our other podcasts, we had Bill Militello, and I won't ever forget what he said on that episode. And it aligns exactly with what I was thinking while we were going through this. And he said something to the lines of, your kids are never going to remember the time when you were just sitting on your computer doing work, right?
Yeah.
And I'm actually starting to get a little emotional thinking about it, but I find myself engaged in my work so much, and I'm trying so hard to provide this life for my family, this good life for my family, and work hard and create income streams, multiple income streams in our real estate businesses, and our multiple businesses that we're trying to build. But my kids aren't going to remember me for the amount of time that I spent on my computer and on my phone and on social media and, traveling and doing deals and all of that work. Like, they're going to remember the bonfires burning the Christmas tree. They're going to remember making s'mores. They're going to remember going on hikes. They're going to remember, all these things. They want their time. They want time with us as dads. And as I was visioning out what our life would look like if I don't make any type of change, I envisioned my kids and my wife, our relationship, going further and further apart, because I was so engulfed in our work to provide this amazing life. But at the same time, I was drifting away in a relationship with my family. And so that really like hit me hard. And, I would challenge, our listeners here to just think about that, like what's most important to you, like money or like, an amazing, abundant life. And it doesn't have to be filled with just money.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I'm a huge action guy, right? So actions speak louder than words, and I believe that to my core. And people say it, but I hold, I hold you accountable to that. I expect you to hold me accountable to that. And yeah. And I remember one thing. So my dad told me years and years ago. I was probably middle school, and we were living in South America. My dad was working all the time, and just, it was a crazy amount of work, right? And I remember like it was yesterday that he said, boy, because he always called me boy. I thought my name was Boy till I was like 18 years old. I had to fill out a application Naval Academy. I think I put boy, and then I had to scratch it out. But he said, anybody who tells you that family comes before work is a liar. A man has to work to support his family, so work comes first. And I didn't, I'm whatever. I'm a middle school kid, and I was like, huh, okay, Dad. And I didn't really think about it much then, but that has come back to me so many times. And I look at his life, and God rest his soul. But before he passed, we, I thank God that we were fully. We're in a good spot, and so there's no regrets there, but
no regrets.
Yep, that's right. But I will say that I analyze his life, and this was a man who had 5 wives. I have I have
He was a
two,
player.
yeah, a player, yeah, something like that, or he's broke because of all the alimony and child support. I have a number of brothers. We're all from the same dad, different mom, all of us from different moms. And you look at that, those family dynamics, and that's a hard place to create a family, right? And I wonder how much of that was attributed to work comes before family. And so there was also, and there was other things there, as well. But I look at, so it's obvious. I think a lot of listeners would be like, well, that's just terrible. That's just a terrible thing to say to a kid. But I would offer, if actions speak louder than words, are you telling your children that through your actions? Mm. And as Stu is highlighting, and as Bill highlighted, if you're on your computer, you're like, kids, I'll get to you later, because this call, this email, this whatever comes first. And I would just offer that it's not to be like try to beat anybody up, but I think we need to be self-aware about that kind of stuff. I think we need to be self-aware of the message we're sending to our family and our friends when we can't do the things that we would love to do and spend time, because we have to talk to another investor or potentially analyze another property or whatever the case may be. And I think all of us would recognize that. And not, I shouldn't say all of us, I shouldn't speak for everybody else. Some people, work will be the thing that drives you and you love it. And even to some people are like, I don't even want kids because I love work. That's fine. As long as you know that and you analyze and you embrace and you live that life, then that's your life. But if it's not, just consider those actions and the message, because they are giving a message.
Actually, as you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself, I told my son last week that he had to wait because I had to send an email, and I probably could have sent that email at any time, but he wanted to play. He wanted to go outside and kick the soccer ball, and I said, I have to work. I have to send this email. And I don't think we're pushing that work is bad, because work is necessary, and God made us to work.
And I love work.
And I think we will always work. But I think the point is, I think you can work. I think you can do it both.
Yep.
You can work hard and work well, but if you do a little like planning, and put things in different areas of your life that might be more important, then I don't know. It's just a really good reflection of where your life is right now.
Yeah, and one other thing I want to highlight is this group in particular. One of the things that they talk about is the number of people that are, these are nationally known names that are Lifeonaires, and what they highlight is that you can do both. You can look like, I can't imagine quote unquote retiring and like sitting around hanging out watching Netflix, I guess, all day. Like, I don't know what retired people
sipping Mai Tais
on the beach. Like, I don't know what retired people. I can see sipping Mai Tais on the beach for a week and a vacation that we go on and relax. Like, yeah, all that's great. But I think it's also important, and what the ultimate point of the Get a Life getaway was to create this vision. And they have a process. We won't go into the process because I don't want I encourage you to come to one. But the process gets you, it's very iterative, and it gets you to a point that you have this vision, a true vision of your life, what is most important to you. And you take that vision and you create a calendar, and then you take that calendar and the vision and you create action steps. Yeah. And then you repopulate that calendar with action steps to get you to this vision that you want to achieve. And what's interesting,
and it has nothing to do with business. Like,
no,
it's about life. Like, what do you want to, and there's what do you want your family life to be like? What do you want your spiritual life to be like? What do you want your hobbies to be, your health, your What else was there?
There was what brings you what was it, self gratitude, or not gratitude, but gratification.
Gratification, yeah.
Gratification and personal gratification, and the things that
the wants, the
Yeah.
needs.
Right. And what's cool about it, and it took me a second to kind of like recalibrate myself, but it was a reverse calendar. So they had you fill all the things that your vision entailed that could not be business based. And then the white space, which is opposite of what we normally do, the white space was the time left for work.
Yeah.
And then you calculated what that ratio was for you, and the ideal number was well under 40 hours a week. And as we all, if we're very self-aware, know, I mean, we may work 40-hour weeks, but how much of us really work 40-hour weeks? I'm not talking about deployment. And even on deployment, you sit around the talk BS or you're in the ship and there's a lot of BS time. So the actual work productivity time is a lot less than 40 hours. So it forces you to kind of prioritize, bin that stuff, and make those your very productive times, which was an awesome exercise. It was really cool. But the point to all that is it's a very iterative process that takes you through this vision. And then you have this written on paper thing that's out of your head that you can look at, and it's a starting point from which you can tweak and really create the vision that you have for your life and what that is. And it's exciting. It's awesome, because then you have on paper like, oh, this is really, and I'm already starting to tweak mine because there are things I put that I'm like, I don't know how to action that, but it enables you to be excited about what your future could look like. And it can look like that. It can look like that. You can have a better relationship with your wife. You can have a better relationship with your kids or your husband, and your partner, whatever. You can achieve these things that are important to you. You can travel. If travel is important to you, you can travel. You build these things in, and then you budget around and build businesses around these things that to enable you to live the life you want to live, which is a really cool concept, and it's awesome. But there are thousands of people at this point that have done this. And that's the point about, go back to the beginning, the bigger picture. Who are you surrounding yourself by? Well, after this weekend, I'm surrounding myself with a bunch of people who've been very successful in business, and that success is defined how they define it to achieve their vision for themselves. No right or wrong, but they have achieved it, and they're doing it, and it's awesome.
I want to surround myself with people who take naps every day.
Yeah, this dude takes naps every day. It was the CEO in his count. They showed us his calendar, and he has a nap built in.
I'm gonna take a nap
every day.
I'm gonna add that in.
Yeah,
my son might not let me in the afternoon, but
I hope he's in school soon enough, right? Just send him to school. Yeah. No, I mean, it's huge. But even stuff like that, and he values that nap. That dude. And this guy is like a bodybuilder. Like he started, I don't know how many businesses that he had started.
Yeah.
But he has Nappy Time, which, hey, I'm gonna try that.
What's are you gonna include some stew, like hangout and hug time?
No, what's really interesting is I have dedicated 7 hours a week to find new best friend time. And so that, and I don't even know if I'll need 7 hours, because I think I'm underestimating myself and the awesome people I can meet. I sent a couple emails out last night to some fillers.
Are you like
some solicitations?
Are you like going out like after hours and
yeah
hanging out?
Well, you go to bed at like 8 o'clock at night, so
Fair.
I have at least 2 hours of normal people time to find best friends.
Normal people time?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Like not baby time, like baby nine time, right? And Stu, I don't know, just for our listeners, he goes to bed with a binky, a binky and a baba. There's a lot of bees, these busting booty all over the place too. So you got to get out of the room if you want to breathe. Another B word. If you want to breathe, you got to get out of the room.
Hey, well, I thought, as you put this calendar together, what you'll see is kind of back to the money thing. a lot of the stuff, I mean, I think both of our calendars, we kind of looked at them, and there's a lot of, I mean, most of the stuff on there that you want to do, that you want to kind of create this like life of relationships and time with your family. For the most part, like a lot of that stuff is free, like,
Mhm.
uh, and some of it might cost, like going like on a date night, like that's going to cost a little bit of money, but
Sure.
it's not like crazy extravagant. And if you kind of add up all this stuff, like it doesn't really cost you a whole lot. I want to start like going on lunch dates with my wife, or going on like a hike with my wife in the middle of the day. Take my kids, do like, you're talking about doing individual dates with your kids, and setting that into your agenda, putting it on a calendar, and like, making it a part of your life. Like how like fulfilling would that be? And relationship building, and just, man,
When it redefined prosperity, right? Like it redefined what prosperity, what that really means, and what that means to you. And I think, again, at the end of the day, it is an exercise for you to create the vision that you want for your life. And it's awesome. Like I said, it's super exciting to look at that calendar and be like, okay, the first things I'm going to put in my calendar are the most important. And why wouldn't you do that? Like the priorities in your life should probably be the first things that populate your calendar. And visualizing it again and going through a systematic way to do that was super fulfilling, and it brought me a ton of joy. And they're very creative too. They're like, hey, you can have like the story. Again, I'm not gonna dive into all their stories, but the Lamborghini story that they had, like how they achieved that was really cool, and it was super creative, and it fulfilled a desire, and they didn't have to buy a $500,000 car, whatever. I don't even know what a Lamborghini costs and all the associated fees that just in maintenance, but they were able to achieve it because they were creative, and someone in the group said, hey dude, why don't you guys just do this thing? And they're like, I never thought about that. Okay, cool. So it's again, it's just that, the concept of surrounding yourself by like-minded people to get to where you want to get in life. So this is what we chose to do this weekend, and it was awesome. It was a time well spent. And I think it was an amazing weekend overall, outside of the general smell of the room and other undesirables like that. But I mean, besides that, it was awesome, dude. It was great.
No, I mean, we had homework, in our lunch breaks, homework in the evenings, and it was really informative, and really interesting to take some time, and I would challenge those of you that are listening to this to do the same. Go, if you don't go to an event like this, at least take some time, take a day, take half a day, go somewhere quiet, and I would say do it individually. Do it you individually, and then maybe have your spouse do it separately. But really think about what you want your life to look like. And I think you'll find that it's not all about being a gajillionaire and making a whole lot of money. And the other thing that I thought that was really interesting was, I think more often than not, like the simple life is, man, it's way better. Like this especially in the real estate culture, like
Yeah.
it's all about the number of doors, right?
Right.
It's the number of doors, it's the cash flow, it's but what if, and I'll just throw this out here, because it's our podcast, like what if instead of having 1,000 doors all on like debt, what if you just had like 20 doors, and they were all paid off, and it was just pure cash flow, and you didn't have the worry or concerns of paying your mortgage? What would that look like? I know it'd be way easier.
Right. Yeah, no, it was interesting, and to hear it from to hear it from people that are like, I mean, they're throwing out real estate strategies and concepts that I'm like, I don't even know what you guys are talking about. And I consider myself a pretty savvy real estate investor, but the things that these guys and gals have done, it what it boils down to is they have a ton of bona fides. They know what they're talking about. A lot of them have made lots of money, national level names in their specific niches that they're doing. So they're not dumb people, and they're not like small timers, right? And for them to say something like, hey, this is what I'm doing, consider this, and the simplicity aspect of it, it just changes your perspective. I have been surrounded by people that it sounds really cool, and I've been victim to this. It sounds really cool to say, yeah, Storehouse 310, we've done over 100 deals in 3 years. That sounds awesome. But I also know the reality of what that takes and what that took, and it wasn't necessarily awesome. I mean, it's been incredible. There's been some great elements of it, but there's also been some things that I'm like, golly, this is just, I could live. If this never happened again, and I've said that probably 35 times, if this never happened again, I would be stoked.
Yeah.
Well, one of the guys, the CEO offered, and it just, for me, it just completely changed my mindset, or at least it offered an alternative. He said, man, all the guys I'm talking to, and when he says all the guys he's talking to a lot of people that have done a lot of deals,
a lot of business owners,
entrepreneurs,
real estate investors.
And he said, my analysis, and this guy's done a number of businesses himself and business plans and all that, and coach people through these processes. He said, my analysis is that the people that are doing, from a net perspective, the people that are doing the best are about 6 to 8 deals a year. Like from a flip I think that was very specific to flips. He said 6 to 8 flips a year from a net are some of my most wealthy and crushing it clients. I'm like, man, that's interesting. Yeah. It just is interesting. But I could see it, because as we scale up, as we were scaling, and there, you bring in new crews, you bring in all this other overhead stuff, like I could totally see it.
Yeah, more systems, more processes, more people to manage, more overhead, more pay. Yeah, it was interesting.
Yes, it's just a perspective is all I'm saying. And you won't get these perspectives from the current groups you're in. Nothing against the current groups you're in, but I think expanding our horizons to additional inputs is extremely valuable. So,
by the way, I just want to make a note here that when you said that they were talking about different strategies and niches that you had no idea what they were talking about,
yeah,
I knew exactly what they were talking about.
Well, yeah, it's easy. Stu knew what they were talking about. Like, he knows the definition of a word, or no, he knows that a word is a word, but he doesn't know the definition, right? It's like, oh yeah, I've heard that word. It's lease options. Yeah, everybody's heard of lease options.
Yeah,
but these people are using ninja strategies to do lease options that are like the actual implementation of a lease option, for example. I'm like, but I'd be very curious to see how you did that, because I just wasn't. It was next level stuff. But
I've been there. I've done that already.
Yeah, no, Stu is unlike the rest of us. He knows everything. He actually doesn't need Lifeonaire. He just came to teach it, actually. He came to teach Lifeonaire, never been to one, buddy.
Nowhere close to the truth.
No, but the point being that it just is it broadens your horizons. And I think that's an important aspect.
Yeah. And I would say that, beyond Lifeonaire, maybe challenge yourself to go to different events outside of what you're used to going to. Maybe go to a Christian conference, maybe go to a parenting conference, maybe go to a computer coding conference, maybe go to a marketing conference, maybe go to like something.
That sounds horrible.
That sounds awful.
That sounds horrible. There's people that are listening and be like, that's awesome. I love computer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But expand your horizons. Maybe get around some people that you might not normally get around. And I think you'll find that it's it's a really, really good experience.
Awesome, man. Well, this was good. We're gonna leave our hotel room studio now, as big as it is, and as refreshing of a life-giving scent it has. And we're gonna go grab some dinner.
4 days of sweaty,
so gross, dude. So gross. Sweaty dude,
shirts and PT gear and
stinky tooties. But hey, hopefully you got something out of this. Hopefully it changes a bit of your perspective, maybe challenges you to go out, get around some different people, learn some new things, challenge yourself differently, grow. If we're not growing, then we're wrong. So I encourage you to do that. Invest in yourself.
I was hoping you'd say something a little bit more profound.
If we're not growing, we're shrinking.
You're wrong.
You're wrong. I think that's pretty profound. You're wrong. I mean, it's simple.
It's good, man.
Simplified.
If
you're not growing, you're wrong. And hey, please, we'd love your inputs. We'd love to know if you've attended something recently, if you've gone to a group that we should check out, that we should push. We'd love to hear about that. We'd love to know. I personally would love to know some of the things that you're doing as well. And if there's these conferences that have fed you and are growing you, let us know about them, because I'm sure we probably have not heard of all of them.
Except for computer coding
events. If there's a computer coding event, conference, maybe just give us a synopsis, write it up, and we'll read it.
Keep that to yourself.
Or just keep it to yourself. Just keep that thing to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's good.
Yeah. It's a good weekend. Good weekend.
Hey, give us a 5-star review. Share this. Follow it. Subscribe it. Anything else they should do?
No.
Oh, go find our Facebook group. We have a private Facebook group. Come join us. I have a video today of David falling right on his face while trying to do yoga in the hotel gym. It was pretty awesome.
First time ever I tried this
crow pose.
Stu's like, oh yeah, just stick your knees in your armpits and like go up on your hands. I'm like, oh, I'll try it. Yeah, I fell. So what? I fell. But you know what? He's been doing yoga for like 15 years and still can't do it.
No, I've been doing it for like 15 days.
Whatever, that's fine. It's still longer than I have. And you failed. But it's good. Maybe send your own videos. James Gray put a video. Awesome. Good job, dude. I think you stayed longer than I did. So congratulations.
Way better than both of us.
Yeah,
David Perez.
David Perez crushed it, dude. He did some handstandy head flippy dippy thing. So
post that on Facebook so people see that. It was freaking awesome.
I don't know if he listens to our podcast. Dave, listen to our podcast.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Hey, go fill your storehouse.
Make it a great day, friends.
See ya.
If you're not growing,
you're wrong.
You're wrong.